Welcome to This is Supercritical, a podcast where experience, equity, and expertise converge to examine current trends in the cannabis industry. You can find all of our podcasts on your favorite streaming service and at supercritical.agency, your one-stop destination for all things cannabis. Hello, I'm Kerry Jordan, co-founder of Supercritical. Joining us on today's episode is Laurel Dineff, founder and CEO of Bedford Grow, one of Illinois' original vertically integrated medical cannabis operations, and now also adult use. She has an incredible story to share with us today, and we're so excited to have her. Laurel, welcome to This is Supercritical.
Thank you, Kerry.
So I'm very curious to know your origin story. Take us back to the beginning and share with us where you're from, what you were doing, and how you transitioned into being the CEO of a cannabis company.
Well, I'm in a position now that I never would have anticipated being in. However, I will say that I am a first-generation American, so I'm very proud of that. My family came from northern Greece, and so when they came they came at a time period when becoming an American was like the thing. And you came here and you worked hard and you earned whatever you could. You supported your family and encouraged your children to do well. My parents worked very hard. They came over not speaking any English, started out, became successful in their own right, and raised 5 children. All 5 of us were attorneys. So I think at the end of the day, they would have been very proud had they lived to see
Oh my gosh, really? That's an incredibly inspiring
So
story.
it was great. And so myself, I spent the majority of my school years on the West Coast. In Asia, I went to school in Japan. I have a master's in international management with an emphasis of Japan. I have an MBA and a JD. So my real profession is really as an attorney. I'm an international intellectual property attorney. So my specialty is really international.
That's quite an impressive story. Wow. 5 attorneys.
5 attorneys in a family. So unfortunately, there's only 2 of us left, and part of losing 2 of them is part of the history of Bedford Grow and going forward. But
sorry for your loss.
And it's tough. But I will say that at the end of the day, their influence really is what started Bedford Grow. I'll say just a little more. I have 6 children myself, and I have 3 boys, 3 girls. I mentioned that I went to school on the West Coast, and I lived on the West Coast in Japan. I came home at the end to complete my schooling, and I don't know how it happened, but I ended up marrying the boy next door after being away for 20 years. And we are together 45 years now.
Oh, and I've met him before.
We just had our anniversary last week.
Congratulations. Happy anniversary.
So that's great. So I guess that's basically where I am personally at this stage of the game.
So I'm trying to imagine what was going through your mind 10 plus years ago when you decided to apply for a medical license.
And it's 10 years. Right now, 10 years ago, right now, I was frantically writing applications to submit to the state. I did not hire an outside firm to help. I did it primarily myself with my staff from my own offices. So we didn't know what we were doing. The state didn't know what they were doing. So it was really the blind leading the blind in doing these applications. However, it was much more difficult then than it is today to do these applications.
In terms of what? The quantity of information?
Quantity of information and the detail. We had to have our sites picked. We had to have our sites approved, zoning approved. We had to put up a $2 million bond.
So a true capital commitment before you
True capital commitment. We had to show that we had access to $500,000. We had to put up $2 million either in a cash bond with the state or a cash escrow with the state or a $2 million bond. We had to have full cultivation plans. We had to have inventory plans. We had to have security plans. We had to have a plan for everything that we have today. We had to have this before filing our applications.
So I would imagine, given your experience and academic background, that there wasn't a whole lot of cannabis education involved in that. So how did you organize to become operational first on the medical side and then transition?
Well, when
to
we
adult use?
decided to do this, and I don't know if this is the appropriate time to say this, but historically, my sister had MS or something similar to MS. She had a neurological disease that mimicked MS. And this was she started in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And so she was quite ill at the time. And she was a patient at Mayo Clinic. And her neurologist says, look, Bev, you really need to get on cannabis. I mean, it'll really help you. And of course, my sister was an attorney. She worked for the state. You just don't do things like that when you're involved in such a position. So she never really used cannabis. Later, my brother developed cancer, and he was basically the one that motivated us to really get involved in cannabis. When he learned about cannabis being potentially approved by the state of Illinois, he, and along with our lobbyist for our other businesses, got involved with the state and helped push, along with everyone else that was doing it, helped push it through the legislature to get it passed. So I think that, once he did that and got us interested, then I started okay, so if I'm going to do this, I have to do it right. I went to Canada, I went to California, I went to Colorado. I visited numerous facilities. I knew what I wanted my facility to be like after seeing all this and what I didn't want it to be like. And I didn't want it to be like anything I saw in Colorado, and I didn't want it to be anything I saw in California. I did want it to be a model of what I saw in Canada, which was truly a medical environment with respect to cleanliness, with respect to keeping the employees in a position where they're always in full PPE, where you have separate rooms for everything. There's no cross-contamination for anything. I just really felt more comfortable. If I'm going to be making something that I wanted somebody to put in their body as medicine, I wanted to feel comfortable that what I was giving them was clean and pure and something that I would be proud of.
Well, Sparky and I toured your facility not too long ago, and it is immaculate. It's beautiful, state of the art. And absolutely the biggest takeaway for me was how amazingly connected your employees were with you. They were so gracious to Sparky and me and our friend Sylvia. And I was amazed by the culture that you have inspired there. So tell us a little bit more about how important culture is to you and how you have come to grow this team that you have.
Well, I can say that more than a few of our team have been there from the beginning, which is really unusual in our industry. I can also say that a good deal of our staff, other than the newbies that have come in for trim, have all been there at least 3 to 5 years. So we don't have a high turnover, particularly after they've been there for any period of time, because we allow movement within the company. The majority of the people that we hire have absolutely no experience in the industry. So they're trained from the beginning. But now we have a gentleman who's been with us from our second year, and he could be a head grower today. He's one of our lead growers. We have all of our people that are leads are all people that started in trim. And so I think one of the things that makes it attractive is that we cross-train everybody. So like this weekend, we're on overtime. Well, the growers are coming in to trim. The extractors are coming in to trim. Everybody is coming in because they can all do other jobs. And I think that's one of the critical things is being cross-trained so that you can do other things. And as you stay with us and as you grow with us, you have an opportunity to move into different departments that you have interest. We can go put you in the kitchen. You could go to extraction. You could go to inventory, packaging. You could go to the grow team. I mean, there's a lot of different opportunities that you have within the company. The other thing is that I don't tolerate unhappy people. Okay?
I admire that.
If you're not, and I say this in every meeting to everybody, and all my managers know, and they say, look, if you're not happy here, please leave, because you're not happy, you're making other people not happy. And my whole prospect, and what I always tell my children, look, get a job that you love. Get a job that every day when you get up, you're happy to go to work. And that's what I want my people. Everybody has their own personal problems. Everybody has issues in life. But when you come to the door, leave them there. You can pick them back up on the way out. But I don't want to see crabby people. I don't want to see people who really hate their job. They're unhappy here. Please leave.
Where do you find such talented, engaged employees? What is the hiring process like for Bedford Grow?
Well, we hire basically through Indeed and just people responding to our website. Look, you can be successful, but you have to work hard. You have to be here on time. You have to put in your efforts.
And I do see this in your business. You started with a medical license, and now you have grown that into adult use. You have 4 dispensaries. And with your products, too, you've continued to expand those. And when Sparky and I visited, we had a chance to taste some of the uninfused edibles, which are delicious. I mean, the flavors are just so yummy. But I'm curious to know what approach you take towards innovation.
Well, we're always looking to make changes. As you may know, we do everything in our facility. All of our product is grown by seed. We do not bring in any clones. We do not bring anything from outside because I'm a clean nut. I don't want to bring in any pathogens. I don't want to bring in any pests. I don't want to bring in anything. So we start everything in our facility from seed. So every product that's come out of our facility in the past 10 years has started from seed. We have a huge seed bank, and we're constantly adding to it, and we're constantly making new genetics all the time. And in order to do that, I mean, it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. But I really feel that in the long run, that's really the best thing for us. As far as making products, of course, we make all of the normal products that are sold out there. But edibles, I love edibles. First of all, I don't do cannabis, unfortunately, or I should say fortunately, because I have no health issues, and I have never been involved with cannabis directly myself. So for me, it's been a super learning experience because I'm not there to be able to put personal input in. So I have to rely on everyone else. But the edibles, of course, the uninfused ones, yes, they're all
What's your
tested
favorite?
by me.
Do you have a favorite?
Actually, I like a lot of them, so I can't really say I have a favorite. The gummies, I like every flavor. There's not a flavor that I don't like. I think my ultimate favorite is lavender honey.
That sounds delicious. I don't think I've tried that.
Lavender honey, that's our CBN gummy. CBN is used for more of a relaxing. It's meant, I think you would use that primarily like at nighttime when you want to relax. You know the difference between THC, CBD, and there's a zillion cannabinoids, but CBN is one that stands out for being a relaxing nighttime cannabinoid that you would take at nighttime. So as far as developing products, so we're always developing products. In extraction, we're coming out with some new products in extraction. We're just waiting for our packaging.
What type of extraction do you use that?
Well, we use a lot. CO2, we use butane, we use, which is the hydrocarbon extraction, and we do ethanol extraction. So it depends what we're making, what we use. But once it goes into extraction, you make an oil. Once you distill that oil, your cannabinoids really become hybridized. Well, first of all strains are hybridized today. You have they're designated sativa, indica, hybrid. But if you really look at it, all of them are hybrids because there's no pure strains left. They've all been mixed over time. They might have a leaning toward being a sativa or a leaning being toward a hybrid. But I think that when you're making products, particularly in extraction, if you're gonna make a distillate out of it, so you're gonna post process it in any way, shape, or form, you're really taking out a lot, and so it's whether it's a sativa or a indica, it really loses that because you're removing all of it during the distillation process. So I find it hard to believe that, people will say, oh, this is a sativa oil when, we've taken out all the properties. But, I guess it's marketing. It's how you
So much of it is marketing. And
right, marketing.
Consumer packaging.
Yeah. So we're always looking for new products, coming up with new products. As I say, we're coming out with a powder for you can use it for cooking, putting in your drinks. It's non-flavored. Our initial one will be non-flavored, and you could use it however you want to use it. It'll be it's called Nano High, and so it'll be just sold in a little finger pocket like a Crystal Light or something like that. And so I'm very big on quality. Bedford Grow, I think, stands for what I want to see in a product that's on the street today. And I think that once people experience Bedford Grow and have an opportunity to try their products, they become avid Bedford Grow people. The problem is getting our product out to where it is. I'm competing with a lot of multi-state operators who have a lot deeper pockets than I do. So they have an opportunity to do a lot more than I do. But I think we've done a good job with what we have.
Yeah, you absolutely have. Do you do much in the way of customer research, or what do you do with the feedback that you get from your customers in terms of new product development?
Well, we definitely put things out into our dispensaries when we do new products, and we ask for customer feedback. They might be sold at a lower price. Definitely get staff samples. And if they take a staff sample, they have to do a review. And if they might be set aside for certain people who are frequent customers, who will then turn around and give us a review based upon the product itself. So we are very anxious to see what other people think of the products other than just ourselves. And a lot of times, especially when we're pheno hunting is when, we plant 10 seeds, say, for example, and even though they're 10 of the same kind of seed, I'm going to get 10 different plants completely, okay? They're going to be different phenos of the same plant, just like two people who get married, have children. Their children don't necessarily are not a clone of one another, so everyone is a little bit different. So when we're pheno hunting, we're really interested in getting commentary on which pheno is better of the two phenos or the three phenos that we narrow it down to.
I'm wondering, if in your mind's eye, when you were taking the bar exam, could you have imagined
Absolutely
doing
not.
something like this?
No, absolutely not.
But as a practicing attorney, you're still practicing law.
Yes.
I imagine that has helped you significantly with managing and working with here in Illinois, the state of Illinois' rules and regs around cannabis.
Yes.
And it's still a very challenging environment for many
question.
operators.
Without question.
So what do you think the state could do to improve the current landscape?
There's a lot of things the state can do. First of all, I think education, public education is so important, especially for uh, people who use cannabis both as a medicine and as a recreational or an adult use drug. I think that the biggest thing is that they don't know enough about cannabis. So there's not enough education about cannabis out there. People think that, oh, I just want they come into the dispensary, oh, I want the highest THC you have. The highest THC doesn't really make it a good product. It may not be a good product for you. You need to take a product. You could have a product that has a mediocre, like a teen, like a 18 or a 17 in a THC level, but has great terpenes, which gives this entourage effect that's much better for you than something that's a 28, 29, 30, 35 in a THC level.
And I'm sure that comes back to education. Like
Yes.
nobody goes into Binny's and just says, I want grain alcohol because it has the highest potency.
Exactly. And so people really need to learn about THC, CBD, the other compounds that are in there, how the terpenes add to it. Terpenes are the scents, the flavors, the chemicals that are in the plant itself that give either effect as a binding agent, which of course a binding agent is great for appetite, or a blocking agent, which is like really great for pain. So those, when you look at all the terpenes that add to the THC, that really makes a big difference. So patient and user education is really important, I think. Second of all, of course, if the state would ease up on some of the taxes that they charge, but that'll never happen because they're making way too much money off of the taxes. But I think that,
Really expensive.
yes, especially on the adult use side. If you use it as a medicine, you should really get a medical card, because a medical card with the state will reduce your tax rate to 1%. And I think it will. There's a lot of people who don't have the medical card that really should have the medical card for purchasing their medicine. On adult use side, your tax could be up to 40%, because in addition to your sales tax, you have your 3% tax that goes to the community. Then you have your cannabis tax that's established by the state that depends on how much THC is in it.
Potency of it.
Yes,
Yeah.
your potency. So, your taxes can be as much as your product cost. And so, if they could ease up on some of the taxes, I mean, that would make the industry more attractive. Um, and what else could the state do?
I do see, too, that you have put the essence of your being into your
Yes.
business. And I'm curious, being female, if you have any particular perspective, or if you think that has been more challenging in terms of growing the company.
Well, I will say that with the initial licensees, originally there were to be 22 licensees in the state of Illinois. And they only, because they really didn't know how they were going to do this, they decided they would only license one major one cultivation for each police district, so that the police wouldn't be overwhelmed, because they had no idea how this was going to shake out in the long run. So of those, the majority of them were groups of people. There might have been one other one that was a family operation, but the rest of them were maybe a private placement group, or just a group of people that got together. So there weren't. I think I was the only individual in the whole game plan. But I think that, yes, dealing with them was difficult because they were all men at the end of the day. the groups of people. And we had an organization that started out a little, an association. And I was like, the only woman owner in that association and originally.
It doesn't seem as a whole lot has changed since 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, the only thing and one reason that I survived all that is because I really didn't care about them. I was doing this for a purpose for myself, not for anybody else. And I don't care what they did. I just was concerned what I was doing and how I was moving forward and what product I was putting into the market. I never really cared about them. I still don't. God bless them. Whatever they're doing, they're all public companies now. Well, good. That was never my goal from the start.
That's a great perspective to have. And sometimes it's very challenging when person's feeling other or different from
right. And I don't have to account to anybody. And at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing. I have to account to myself. And if I'm making myself happy, I don't have to worry about whether Joe Schmo is happy or, what he's doing. I think one thing that I do is, I reinvest absolutely every dime back into the business to grow the business. Fortunately, I'm an attorney, so I can survive. But so I think that's important for me because I want to continue to grow.
Well, what's ahead for Bedford Grow?
Well, we purchased the building next door to our existing facility, which will give us another 120,000 square feet of space. And so we will be expanding into that within the next few years. I think it's just getting more of our product out there, getting more people to know about our product and realize that, Bedford Grow cares about what they put on the market. We have 2 lines. Our Bedford Grow line is our high-end line. That's our grade A product. We hand trim all of our product. Everything is done by hand. The second line that we have is called Lula's. That was my nickname as a little girl. And that is utilizing the same quality of Bedford Grow product, but the post-processing is a little different.
I really look forward to watching you continue to grow. One thing I'd love to hear before we wrap up today, and this is a question we ask all of our guests on This is Supercritical, is what do you think is the most supercritical issue facing cannabis operators today?
Facing the operators themselves?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the government restrictions is the biggest thing, particularly with the tax environment the way it is and the legality of cannabis federally. Really, really hurts us in the finance industry. Banks won't lend to us. Very few banks are even involved or allow us to have accounts in the state. You have to find a state chartered bank. You have to get involved with one. I mean, any financing we get has to be done ancillary. Like I have to borrow money privately or, do it based upon putting up other collateral. There's nothing I can do that relates to cannabis and to the banking industry at this stage of the game.
I agree. For Supercritical's clients, capital raising is one of the biggest challenges.
Right. It's been really, really a tough situation for us. And everything in cannabis is amazingly expensive. Like we call it a green tax. So if a piece of machinery would cost $100,000, because we're cannabis, it's going to be $200,000. So there's it makes things a lot more difficult than if we had easy access to funding and in our dispensaries, if we could use credit cards, we can't. It's still a cash environment. I mean, there's that ATM usage, where actually people are using debit cards, but it's being run on an ATM rail. I don't do that because it's just not the right way to go. But I think that once the banking industry opens up and the feds relax the tax basis for these cannabis companies, I think it'll be a lot better. To me, that's the most important thing.
And where can people find Bedford Grow?
Well, of course, you can find us on the internet, but also we're in most dispensaries in the state. We deliver all throughout the state. If you're interested in Bedford Grow and you go to a cannabis dispensary that doesn't carry it, ask them for it, and they can always order. They have access to our menus online all the time.
Fantastic. Well, Laurel, thank you so much for joining us today on This is Supercritical. We really appreciate all of your insights and admire all that you've accomplished in growing your business.
Thank you.
For our audience members, please leave comments in the chat. We'd love to hear about your experience in the industry. And we invite you to sign up for Supercritical's 20-minute complimentary consulting session. Schedule time through our website. And please join us next month when Barabara Webb, tax partner with MGO, joins us to discuss tax and accounting issues for cannabis operators. Thank you. Recently, Supercritical has fielded a lot of inquiries from brands that are interested in selling products to female consumers. I'm very curious about why they want to do this, and when I ask for the reasons, oftentimes the answers are pretty flimsy. Strikingly, most of the prospects that we're talking to understand that it's a big market and they want to somehow capitalize on that. But the essence of why they want to sell to women falls flat. So when we have these conversations, I want to encourage them to do more research around the female consumer and understand her more fully. I usually will suggest reading a couple of books. The first one is called Invisible Woman: Data Bias in a World Designed for Men. And this was written by Carolyn Perez. She's a researcher who has spent significant amount of time looking into the root cause of gender inequality and really bring up research that dives into where women live, what they're doing at home, where they're spending time online, what their lives in the workplace is like, or even their healthcare issues. So she really talks about how data is fundamental to the modern world, which we know that's true, and especially in terms of getting to know your consumers. But she really addresses the economic development and the challenges that women face and a lot of the biases that occur in big ways and in tiny ways every single day in the lives of women. So I'd encourage people to read that book because it really will give you a sense of how women are left out of this conversation, and they're often left out of research related to what women actually want. The second book is called Winning Her Business: How to Transform the Customer. And this was written by a friend of mine. Her name is Bridget Brennan, and she really digs into why women buy what they buy. I mean, we know that women spend about 70 to 80%, they're driving about 70 to 80% of those consumer decisions. And it seemed like an obvious strategy to attract women, but oftentimes there's not a common sense approach to it and really not a common practice in how to do that. So in Bridget's book, she talks about 4 motivators, and this is her framework, which really will help brands dial in on what consumers want and what they feel. The first motivator that she addresses is connecting to them, connecting to women, and having the brands really understand who they are and where they are and why they're shopping. She also addresses how brands can really motivate women to be inspired to buy their products specifically, and understanding what can be substituted and what won't be substituted. The third part of her framework addresses confidence in their buying decisions and what brands can do to help women do that, and what the brands can do to help themselves to inspire more confidence in their products. And the last is appreciation, to make customers feel appreciated for what they're buying, for the time and effort and dollars that they spend and put towards the brands. So I believe that connecting with female consumers requires significantly more than just putting pink packaging around the box. It really requires deep and thoughtful research into what the women are looking for in the products, what's going to make them want to come back and be sustainable and repeatable customers of your brand. And more importantly, it's about educating yourselves as to what women want. So I'll put the links to these 2 books in the comments. Please read them. I'd love to hear your thoughts on these books, and feel free to schedule time with Supercritical and our experts to discuss it further for your brand.